Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe. Hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Now, we are joined by Neil, Refracted Curvature, 10th Man, Brian's Logic, the Adam Meakin, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, guys.
Greetings. What's going on out there?
It's raining over here.
Yeah, it's raining here. Fascinating
And
stuff.
it's raining over here, too.
How's everybody in Discord? A few of you are on mute, which you're not now. Can you just get a hello? You all good?
All good, all good. Hello. And it's raining in South Africa too.
Huh.
Hello.
Hello, wow.
Discord is working.
Excellent. Good to know. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as the curve of the Earth?
No, only in the math, based on considerations.
What kind of considerations if we were measuring physical Earth curve?
Mathematical considerations of the geometry nature.
I was talking physical evidence as opposed to reified maths.
But isn't that what the dip angle measurement's supposed to be? A physical measurement to a geometric horizon?
I mean, for them, no. That violates the celestial sphere model, does it not? They say that. I know you're playing both sides a little bit too much at the moment, John. Yeah, they might say that, but that doesn't work, does it? As you well know.
No, it does not. No.
So first and foremost, we don't have a geometric physical sphere edge for a horizon. We only have one horizon, and the horizon in there, begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking Earth curve mathematics, that Arwin refers to, is a physical leading edge of a geometric blockage called Earth curve. Well, that's got a straight line to it. As of 2020, it's, according to their own side, refracted. They've even got backing in terms of physical documentation from Andrew Thomas Young to tell us and show us mathematically how refracted it is. Well, if it's a refracted bent line, it's no longer a geometric tangent point, so they can no longer perform dip. Further to that, you can't get an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline. So they're screwed on both fronts.
And that's the bottom line.
And it's flat. It must be to perform the function of celestial navigation.
That's correct.
Any evidence of the distance to
It
the
also
sun?
must be.
Oh, sorry, John. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it also must be flat to get a dip angle measurement to the horizon because it's a differential between two flat planes.
In case you didn't hear that through the wind noise, it's a differential correction between two planes. So you're taking an angle, straight line, not bent one, that's from your position to the baseline of the ground itself. And it's the difference between those two things. That's what an actual dip angle correction is. It's actually the height of eye correction. And it's your height of eye above the horizontal plane.
It's so simple.
Any evidence of the
Good morning,
distance?
peeps.
Hey, Chocolate. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Can we spend a little more time on that one before we go to the sun?
We could, but it's now reached the point where housekeeping has started off as a process to try and encourage the guys in Discord to answer the questions in regards to their globe faith, and has become an opportunity for us to go through whatever's the most prevalent housekeeping question at the time, which is currently the elevation angle question, obviously, and the other ones don't get answered. So I'm in two minds whether or not to leave it that way, because it makes for good shows, which it does, because the discussions are great. But it sometimes means that if you are your average idealistically viewed, probably never actually watching normie who comes here, and you don't get to hear the full round down of the housekeeping questions concisely and in order and briefly.
Well, we can come back to it.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Why don't you just come back to it after housekeeping? That's perfect.
Yeah.
For the reasons I just gave, Neil, which is to say that I actually do appreciate the fact that it whilst designed to encourage globe believers to put their argument forth when we ask them for their evidence of their claim, it does also serve to develop great conversations internally on the G Plus panel with you. I don't want to discourage that, so I don't want to just say, "Oh, I will just come back to it," because sometimes that can kill the steam off. Now we're talking about the doing it, which is a bit off track, if I'm honest. There we go.
Look, there'll be plenty of steam. I'll come back to it. Go on with the housekeeping question.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun in that case, feel free to join in Discord.
Man,
Frickin' tumbleweeds. I love it.
bloody hell. What is the sun?
Just need somebody to say no or claim that the R value based 93 million miles distance is actually applicable, and then fight your claim. One or the other will do, and then we can move on.
No, there's
No.
only an angular size to the sun, and everything is back calculated from its angular size.
Perfect. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
No, there's only a density relationship between matter and the medium it resides in. So no scientific evidence of gravity.
Sometimes the matter becomes the medium. Isn't that fascinating? Relative density. Interesting stuff. Meanwhile, all matter doesn't go down. All mass doesn't go down. All different states of matter have various different behaviors with other different states interacting with them. For example, water in gas or solids in liquids. Go ahead, John.
If you're going to calculate gravity, you could use a graph and cover space and time, and then make a claim that that's a fabric.
You could make a graph that covers space and time. Okay, you're not gonna hoodwink me by saying that you can graph out time and transpose that conceptual description of something elapsing versus something in physicality. The description of time in and of itself is conceptual, but you're not going to translate that fourth dimension in that regard into our physical reality. It can't. It's a pseudo geometry. No matter graph work's going to do that.
Just shut up and calculate, man. that brings it all into reality.
Well, I'm asking for scientific evidence, and let's be honest, John's just saying I can calculate a few graphs. sort of sidestepping the question there, John. But, that is what we get offered, let's be honest.
Yeah, there's no scientific evidence for gravity, so you got to ignore the question and reword it.
Yeah. I'm not decrying what you did. I mean, you're doing an admirable job of what I'd have to contend with if I was dealing with any other globe believer or anti-flat earther / globe heretic. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics? So I spent a good chunk of yesterday evening just tuning the sound. So if somebody in the chat could tell me if everything sounds really pucker, I'd be appreciative, because I did mess around with it for some time and I didn't have a guest to do it with. So hopefully the guys on the panel sound good, as do I, and we're all balanced nicely. So that's no scientific evidence. Viable hypotheses.
No,
If they did, it probably would have started with gravity. But since there's no scientific evidence for that, it's a shame.
What about a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Yeah, that is funny. That's why you're laughing as you're asking the question.
No.
Any,
Once
any
again,
evidence?
no.
Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
Not unless you include flat Earth elevation angles to Polaris. Other than that, there is no evidence.
Well, speaking of elevation angles, then any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved baseline?
Negative.
I like
think-
all the rebuttals you get to this question.
We don't, do we? What's the rebuttal we've had?
Well, you get silence, nuh-uh, and yeah, vertices are angles.
The only actual rebuttal, if you can call it that, is to go, if I take these flat Earth angles that were measured on a flat Earth because they could only be measured off a flat baseline, and offer them to you, a flat Earther, those flat Earth angles I measured, and don't mention that they were measured on a flat Earth, and ask how you'll deal with those flat Earth angles on a flat Earth, that's actually what we've had as a so-called rebuttal so far. Literally, that is no joke.
That's more of a concession, though, isn't it?
Yes.
Usually, their rebuttals are concessions.
That's correct,
the pattern.
Chocolate.
What, like you and your reference frames have been ruined? Any evidence, or how does the Coriolis question go again? Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety? I forgot the question for a second then.
No. There is no 15-degree drift.
Well, like you just quoted, you and your reference frames have been ruined. Whose reference frames have been ruined again?
Globe's the only one that's claiming them. It could only be the Globe's
Ah.
reference frames. No one else claims them in this regard.
Ah, that's weird. And the guy who said that happens to believe we live in a ball. That's interesting.
What's more interesting is that his audience
Thanks
is
for the
too dumb to
15
get the
degree.
fact that he's wrong. While he's telling them how wrong we are and debunking his own claim, none of his audience will pick up on that, which just speak volumes to the type of people watching people like Simon Dan, doesn't it?
It's weird. So they don't hit him up with thanks, Bob, for the 15-degree rotation? What reference frame is that supposed to happen in? Aren't they on the same side? The ones who are telling us the reference frames are ruined and thanks, Bob? What the hell is that about?
Yeah, exactly. They don't know their own claim half the time.
That's
Isn't
very true. They don't. That is
Go-
something they don't know, is their own globe. They always, most of them, literally wrong. I find that I know their globe, and I can confidently say that I know the heliocentric model better than about at least 95% of everyone we deal with.
Okay, number one, 32.4% of statistics are made up on the spot. And number two, I agree with you. About 95% of all the people who we come across, generally speaking, have got a lesser understanding of the globe model than we do. Further to that, we know the origins. We discussed this last week, actually, you and I specifically, Brian. We would both agree that we are advanced globe believers. We understand the origins that are a flat Earth, and we understand the intricacies of the heliocentric model. So if we have advanced beyond mere globe belief, we have a more deep-seated understanding of this reified religious faith in a sphere model that we can describe admirably, better than most of the people who believe in it.
Yeah, we have elevated ourselves to the status of high priests, heliocentric high priests almost. The only problem is we know it's a load of rubbish, but we still have that. We still have the knowledge. I could sit down with anyone and completely convince them that I'm an absolute globe earth heliocentric expert, any normal person, without ever mentioning anything about what the truth is. I could sit down and rattle off globe thing after globe thing, and they go, wow, this guy is such a great science guy. But if I mention to them that it's all a complete load of rubbish and start pointing out the truth, then they're going to have a problem. But as long as I detail their belief in intricate form, they'll sing my praises all day long.
When you say we're high priests, when we had the conversation last week, it made me go to this idea as well, which was the thoughts and remembering how I was discussing aspects of understanding flat Earth in Freemasonry. So Chris Monk and Infinite Plane Society, or Tim Osman, or is it Osman? I forget which. Either way, IPS. But when they describe some of the aspects of Freemasonry in terms of flat Earth, there is a generalized understanding up the higher ranks, but they don't talk about it. They're not disseminating it. And in fact, quite the reverse. They poo-poo the idea of Earth being flat and have ideas of how to ridicule it, like a normie would ridicule it, but with the understanding of the origins of the globe model, i.e. it's flat. So it's an interesting... The only difference between us and your typical actual, maybe classified, I don't know if you'd classify Freemasons, but that's just where my mind goes when we have this conversation, as high priests, Freemasons that is. Whether or not you would is kind of irrelevant to my point. It's just more that particular individual group that have got a considered to be higher understanding of maybe this subject in this regard, just don't tell the rest of the world that it's flat. They might know, they might understand the origins of the model better than your average normie, but they certainly wouldn't convey that, because the current religion is a globe, isn't it? So therefore, again, I'm sure I said this last time as well, one of the OG flat earthers out there, Validation Boy, said, yeah, we should leave it that way. His attitude was to say, yeah, okay, we all know now it's flat. We've all figured it out, okay. Now why don't we all just keep our mouths shut about it? Just know that you know something that they don't, and get on with your life, and maybe life will be better for it. Now, in retrospect, maybe he was right. Maybe the Freemasons figured that out. You're not going to brace against society. You're not going to change the world in that regard. You can change your understanding of what the world is, but the world itself is only perceived through the mind's eye of the general masses. And you can't change that. It's not under your control, and there's obviously control been put in place. And this is one of those control keys or cogs or whatever. So therefore, are you going to change the world, in quotes? No, I don't think so. So maybe VB was right back then when he's like, yeah, okay, we know, but let's shut up about it now.
Hey, Nathan, you're just pessimistic about it. Nobody that changed the world believed that they could. Can't do anything if you don't think you're capable of doing it.
It depends which hat I'm wearing. Some days I think I'm absolutely capable of changing the world because I've got control over the world that I perceive. Therefore, that is my world. That is the world. So therefore, sometimes I'm empowered by that. But then you go, well, no, there is, let's just call it the matrix, the control structures that are out there to keep you doing what you do, paying your taxes, doing all the things that Morpheus lists off to Neo in the normie world. And those aren't our control structures. We didn't create them. And have we got anything in place to put a society back together if we destroyed them? And if we had the inclination to destroy them, would we necessarily benefit from destroying them? We don't know. All of these marvellous answers sometimes do cross my mind when I'm a little bit more sceptical. And also in a better mood for it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just something else that's going on. Anyway, there's lots of things flashing on at the moment. We had Brian, I believe, presenting something a moment ago, and 10th Man has been waiting in the wings till the housekeeping questions ended. So I don't know who wants to go first. Brian, looks like.
Yeah, I was going to present something. If 10th Man doesn't mind waiting, but if he wants, I'll go after him. I'm okay about it.
No, go ahead, Brian. You go first.
Perfect. Go ahead, Brian.
Okay, thank you, Ted. Okay, I'm going to have to just unshare this in a second and reshare unshare what I'm sharing and reshare something else in a second. To show you way I can do it correctly. Okay, this is. I'm going to just bring this down to here. Okay, you can see the size of this circle. Now, it's just over 45 degrees within this angle I'm showing here. Okay. Now, what I'm showing here is that regardless of the size of the circle, that 45 degrees will always be 45 degrees. So if I make this circle this size or this size, 45 degrees will always be 45 degrees, and the same exact amount of minutes of degree will always be within that 45 degrees. Okay? So the point being is that in every circle, regardless of its size, whether this is a basketball or it's heliocentric Jupiter, every circle will have 360 degrees, and that means every circle will have 21,600 minutes of degree around its surface. Okay, so it's going to have 360 degrees and 21,600 minutes of degree around its surface, regardless of how big or small it is. Right? That's just the way it is. Sphere or circle. So if we take this circle, right, and let's say it's 45 degrees or close on 45 degrees a half here, so that'll be 2,700 minutes of degree. Now, this is how the globe Earth, this is how they measure, right, when they reproject from the celestial sphere model. This is how they measure their nautical miles on their surface. Okay, and what this does for them is it gives them a nautical mile distance in orthographic view along their surface. But this is the problem. This is how they explain 60 nautical miles per degree. Because there's 45 degrees here, which would be 2,700 minutes of degree, which will one for one become 2,700 minutes, nautical miles. And that's how they explain it. Now, there's a problem, right? And the problem is that our opposition need to claim 7/6 or 7/6 of a radius, refraction rate, right? That makes their globe bigger. So if the globe is becoming bigger, then the size of the nautical miles on their globe becomes bigger, because nautical miles will always be 1 with minutes of degree. So if the size of the nautical mile becomes bigger, if you make the sphere bigger, then the reality ratio between those nautical miles and statute miles changes. So I'm just going to show, right, what I mean. I'm just going to stop presenting this.
While you're doing that, I'll shout out a couple of super chats. Perfect timing. So shout out to James Richard, who says there's only one person that changed the world. That's Jesus Christ. Thank you very much indeed, James, for the super chat. Also shout out to Godzilla37, who says James is right. This super chat won't change the world either. Still flat. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to represent this. Okay, right. So, in reality, 60 nautical miles per degree will equal 69.048 statute miles. When 7/6 is added to the globe Earth's radius value, it is no longer 3,959 statute miles, as that will change the radius value. As then the radius becomes, with 7/6 4,618.83 statute miles, and the circumference becomes 29,006 statute miles, as opposed to 24,860 statute miles. But this then means that 1 degree cannot be 69.048 statute miles anymore, as now 1 degree with the 7/6 is 80.5729 statute miles due to this 7/6 radius change. So the conversion rate from 1 nautical mile to 1 statute mile is no longer, I should have put in then 1.1508, because that's the 1.1508 is the conversion rate in reality from nautical mile to statute mile. But with this, but as now due to the 7/6 conversion rate, it rises to 1.3428. So this means two things, right? Because now the conversion from nautical mile to statute mile is bigger, because the nautical mile is now bigger because they've increased the size of the globe with 7/6. And they do state that the geometric horizon is only in the maths, and that the horizon is always refracted at least 7/6. They've also added in greater than 7/6 and infinite over 6r. Greater than 7/6 is rumpus, and infinite over 6r is Rubik, right? So this means two things. One, that the globe believers can either claim 7/6r and relinquish 60 nautical miles per degree, because the whole process won't work in reality with statute miles, or that globe believers can claim 60 nautical miles per degree and a geometric horizon, but they must relinquish 7/6 refraction. They can't claim both, as the two are mathematically paradoxical and contradictory within their maths. 60 nautical miles per degree works perfectly in reality with the reality horizon. So we don't have a problem in reality. This is a paradox within their own model, within their own claims, which means they can either claim the horizon is refracted, but they can't claim 60 nautical miles per degree is going to give them 69 statuette miles, which we always get in reality. And or they can claim that the horizon is not refracted, that it's geometric, and that they can get 60 nautical miles per degree, but they can't have refraction within their model then to change the size of their sphere. So just right, so that is the paradox, right? So just to add it, although this is not 100% correct, the maths are correct as far as I know, but this is not 100% correct. Just to add it, this second part, because it involves a circle of equal altitude, something that they can't have. But I'm going to just use it as an example of what happens with their radius change, is what the size change would mean with a circle of equal altitude. But this would mean that, for example, a 27-degree elevation angle, which would have a 3,780 nautical mile adjacent length, would not equate to 4,350.024 statuette miles anymore, as now it would have a 5,075.7 statuette mile length, leaving a deficit between the two of 725 statuette miles. And if we were to use this distance as the radius of a circle of equal altitude, then as a diameter, it would become 10,151 statuette miles, as opposed to it being a diameter of some 8,700.048 statuette miles, leaving a deficit of 1,450 statuette miles between them. So if you turned it from a radius into a diameter, there's now 1,450 statuette miles extra, right, with using their 7/6 bigger sphere. If they could have a circle of equal altitude, which they can't. But I digress. And if we then turn this 10,151 statuette mile diameter into a circle, it would have a circumference of 31,875 statuette miles, as opposed to what it should have, which would be 27,318 statuette miles, which would have in reality, which leaves them with a deficit of 4,557 statuette miles. So once 7/6 is added, the globe model becomes a mathematical impossibility. Now, as I said, this last bit is talking about circles of equal altitude, something that they don't have and can't have because it involves a radius line, which is a straight line on the surface. But the point is, I'm just showing just how ridiculous it gets. Now, the real problem they have, besides that, the real problem they have is the paradox. Does everyone understand what paradox is going down here within their model, and how they can't have both 7/6 and 60 nautical miles per degree, making 69 statuette miles? Does everyone understand that?
Yeah, it's epic.
Yeah. So
same goes for light coming in parallel. But I digress.
Yes.
Have you got more to go, Bride? I stuck a picture in.
No, I'm finished down now.
This is brilliant, because I was trying to think what their rebuttal was. And basically, the only rebuttal is that it doesn't occur at 7/6 refraction. So if you look in Master B, Nathan, I've put a picture in of their claim of where the sun is and where it actually is. So its apparent position, its real position. So this is their claim that supports Brian's mathematical paradox for them. Really nice numbers. I didn't want to join in case you lot ridiculed me for getting an R value wrong again. I'm not doing it.
That's just Mitch. That's not us.
But that picture, Bright, that sums it up, because that underlines their claim, which validates your paradox to me.
You may not be looking at it because it's in Master B, but it's going out to the board in
I see it.
Sorry, there's three people talking at once. Just 1 second.
Exactly.
Yes, great.
Yeah, true position of the sun, exactly, because they have to add in 7/6 for it's a necessity for them. If they didn't add in 7/6, then their claims would be laughed out of court, because the Earth as it would be supposed to, as it would be claimed to be at that point, wouldn't look anything like reality. So they have to add in at least 7/6R. And as we know from the Black Swan, they're willing to add any amount of refraction to try and make up some excuse, even though it kills them with the Black Swan. They don't understand that, but it doesn't matter for this point. The point is they are willing to add in any amount of refraction, and they need it because in reality, what we see needs to be somewhat matched. They need to hijack the perspective we see. They can't. We look out across horizontals. They have to make people believe that they're looking out to a point that's curving away or down from them. But they can't do that without 7/6R because the globe would be too small. It would be ridiculous.
Is this parallel, right? This light that's coming in, this is all parallel, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other paradox.
That's another bloody good point, Nathan, isn't it? That's another contradiction in their model. The light comes in parallel, except it's not parallel because it has to bend to remove it to alter the position from the apparent to the true. So it can't be parallel if it's bending, can it? Like, wow.
Right, yeah, exactly. But it's that is a spin-off of Brian's paradox that he's describing. It's the same thing. I'm just going to do a quick couple of shout-outs. So another shout-out to James Richard. He says they use the numbers as if they're measurements. Globe Earth has never been, quote-unquote, measured. Who can stretch a line upon it, in quotes? I think that's a Bible quote. Thank you very much, James Richard, for the super chat. Also, us so far. Can we prove the moon gives off measurable cold light, ? And is this a flat Earth proof, ? I always get challenged with the moon when arguing flat Earth. And then a puzzled look emoji. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat, us so far. We've got 10th Man in the Wings who's got a presentation waiting to go. But because he's paid for it, can we just quickly address that question if that's possible, guys? So, is the moon allegedly being a cold light in any way a flat Earth proof? I think that's an easy answer.
That's very simple to answer in terms of that. No. People can go and look on Iron Realm back in the day, and I was asked to do my best in a way to try and take some measurements, which I won't go into the detail, but I did as best as I could with really sensitive equipment and to see what happened. And I took some measurements from the thermometers. I tried to empiricize it as best as I could and try and put some statements of fact in there. This was not an experiment. I never even claimed back then that it was an experiment. I think test was the word I may have used. Within that, I got some very strange results where actually if I used the thermometers in the sun and got a reading in the sun and in the shade. And I followed a little bit of logic to say that if the moon was reflected sunlight, then the same effect should occur. Maybe not to the same degree, but if it was reflected, then I would expect maybe a slight increase in the temperature. Maybe not as much as direct sunlight, but a slight increase between moonlight and moon shade. I actually got the opposite. I then swapped the probes round, and the temperature's reversed again. So with my thermometers in my back garden, in moonlight, it was colder than in moon shade, if you accept that they're the parameters that I controlled and varied in terms of my measurements with the thermometer. What does it mean? I've got no bloody idea, but fundamentally, does it have any bearing on the nature of Earth? Not really. It's just, to me, just another thing that messes with you. The moon is the most strangest thing. It's just another set of things that I can't explain, but they went against all assumptions. That's about the best I could summarise it.
Well, you could also add in, because QE's got a whole presentation on specular reflections from the moon, debunking the notion that it's got reflective light. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I mean, that was the whole purpose, that you can take the hot spots in terms of it's a ball and reflecting of light. That was all given as an assumption. It was literally just to assess whether or not I could get a temperature. Would I get a temperature difference in moon shade and moonlight? And I'll be honest with you, I did not expect anything at all. If it was reflected sunlight, which it could quite happily still be in a flat Earth model, I don't see any contradiction per se within the limitedness of a flat Earth model. But if it was reflected sunlight, I would have expected no change or very little increase in once you're in the moonlight. But I actually got the opposite. And like I said, when I swapped the probes over, the cold probe and the moonlight and the moon shade, the results went the other way. The probes did go and get colder once I put it in the moon, and got warmer when I put it in the shade. I can't draw any conclusions from it other than that the moon is its own set of rules. Yeah, but in terms of hotspots and all of that, that's kind of where it leads you to that, because you can see that it's not a spherical reflecting surface just from the way the light's behaving and what you observe in the night sky.
Because
Well,
I
if
can't.
I
Can
could
you
say
expand on
something-
QE's
sorry.
example with a specular reflection in mind?
If I could just say, the best example of that I ever saw, and it was the most simple example, was a thermometer with a magnifying glass. If you do that with the sun, you'll watch the temperature go up. If you do it with the moonlight, full moonlight, you'll watch the temperature go down.
I tried that, Brian, with a telescope, trying to get it. I couldn't get anything really there. To be honest, the telescope created more shade. And I couldn't get it to focus. But I will stand by those results because I did my best. I'm wandering around my garden, do you know what I mean? Putting it in shade, putting it out of shade. And you can see it, darkness and light, whether you've got moonlight or moon shade. And those results still stand. I would stand by the results. What they mean, I could give no inference on. But I would
can
stand
give you
by
some
the
inference.
validity of the readings I took.
Let me try. What it shows is that upon discovering that you've been lied to about the nature of Earth, regardless of its shape, everything else is suddenly fair game, including your understanding or subsequent lack thereof when it comes to the moon. So what does this show? Well, it shows that, generally speaking, flat earthers will be far more inquisitive about things that they experience in their day-to-day lives that have, until then, been told to them as fact in terms of how they're described in the heliocentric model. Nothing to see here, nothing to worry about. You don't need to concern yourself with the moon. We've travelled to it, we've conquered it. Now it's a bit boring, let's just ignore it. Oh, really? Well, we're going to examine how it behaves. That's what it shows me. That, generally speaking, not always, flat earthers, in my experience, I'm going to have to put some weasel words in here, as you can tell, are just that little bit more inquisitive, or a little bit more intrigued. There's a fascination to the world that we inhabit that is lost prior to finding out that we've been lied to. So that's what it tells me. Does it tell me any more about the moon? Not really. It contradicts a lot of the ideas that I already knew were false about the moon. They don't tally with what we actually look and investigate about it. But I can already debunk the notion of it being a rock in a sky vacuum. So does that help me in any flat earthy way? No, not really, but it does encourage others who see us doing that, going, so you're just having your own little investigation then? You're not knocking on the door of NASA and asking them?
Yeah, well, that was what I would have said. I was going to say about it as well. It's like what I saw with the magnifying glass. I saw Mark Sargent doing it with a magnifying glass, a big one that was, I think, bigger than the thermometer he was using, and the temperature went through the roof with the sunlight, and then way down with the moonlight. Just as a simple way of doing it. Now, I don't know, as Adam said, when he tried to use a telescope, it created more shade. But it doesn't prove anything to do with flat Earth, but it does prove that what we're told, either what we're told is about the moon is not true, or there's things they're not telling us if they already know them. And why are they not telling us?
And while these guys are talking about their investigation into the moon, it should highlight that everybody in this, let's call it a community for now, can do their little bit. If everybody just does a little bit, I don't have to do anything at all. It's really good.
You knew that was coming. It must be. I've put the more interesting result I got, which is, like I said, when I'd been out for quite a while testing, and then I swapped the probes over. And you might just have a quick look. It's very interesting. I'd like to say I can draw no inference from it other than to reaffirm that the fairy tales I've been told, just from those readings, would appear to be non-congruent with their explanation. Other than that, I wouldn't dare make a further claim, but I found it very, very interesting.
I think that was the best value answer to a super chat ever. Now, 10th's been waiting for a long time. Are you still keen and genned up? Do we need to...
Yeah. I'm not afraid to make some claims right now.
Okay. Did you want me to start with the slides that you presented before, Adams?
Yes, there's a total of 11, I believe.
I was going to say, where does it begin? What's the first one?
The protractor, elevation, and the azimuth angle gauge.
Ready when you are.
I'm ready. All right. So as everyone can see here, the reference point is right there, marked clearly. Sight lines marked clearly. And then you've got a protractor. Now, on this protractor, they've got the numbers 90 east at the bottom left and 270 west, right? And you've got the top numbers 0 to 90 and then 0 to 90. So much like any other protractor here. Just remember this picture. I'm going to refer to it while going through the rest of the slides. Next slide. So here's a navigator using a sextant, and he's got the horizon. Now, I don't see any curvature on that horizon, and the horizon at sea is used for the reference because at sea, there's nothing. There's no island, there's no flagpole, there's nothing. You just got the sea. So the only thing stable is the horizon, and it's horizontal. It's level, as shown here. And you can see here, he's getting a right angle to the star. So up from the horizon, you get your elevation angle. It's pretty plain. There's no bendy curved lines because you can't get an elevation angle with a bendy curved line. Next slide. Here we have the deception kind of shown to us. There's only one great circle, and it's the equatorial plane. And it's horizontal. It's called the equator. All the other so-called great circles are longitudinal. Okay, the dingleberry would have it going under you and coming around your back and calling a circle a line. But the only great circle is horizontal. It's what the land and ocean rest on. That's what you were seeing in the previous picture. If you can imagine that first slide, the protractor, just place it here. You need a baseline that's flat, straight, horizontal in order to get an elevation angle. Next slide. This can never work. And this is from them showing that they have to have a right angle, triangle, but it can never work from a curved baseline. But it does work if the only great circle is a disk, and that's what we live on, a flat plane that's a disk. All the measurement angles from the Nautical Almanac and Air Almanac originate from the center of the Earth, where this plane of the equator exists. It's clearly told to us it's a plane of the equator. There is no curve when you slice that ball in half. Next slide. John brought this to everyone's, I'm getting feedback. John brought this to our attention. We brought it to everyone's attention as an FED panel for months and years now, that the dip correction is a depression angle correction from your eye line horizontal, the fictitious one, and the Earth. That would be that plane, not this geoidal horizon where you bring your eye line to the surface of the Earth and pretend you're on the ball. We just saw a slide that you can get a right angle from this ball. So where are they really saying it all occurs? We see that thing labeled celestial horizon? That's the equator. That extends all the way to the imaginary celestial sphere, which is a flat Earth model. And so really your eye is there where you see the 90 box and the 4 quadrants of a circle. But turn this circle, instead of having a slice of a great circle vertically, just lay it on its side. That's where you bring your eye to. This is shown the wrong way because they want to fool you with longitude great circles. Next slide. This is what's happening. The sun is over the plane. Remember, the Nautical Almanac says all the angles originate at the plane of the equator. That's the true altitude. That's what you have to correct for. That's what all the sextant corrections are about. Instrument corrections to make sure it's calibrated, and all the other corrections are to make sure this is happening. And this is at the center of the Earth. And what's at the center of the Earth? The plane of the equator. Now they got it in the box here, but it doesn't matter. The point is, you see at 90. That was a picture that they try to say you need to do on the surface with that boat. And it could never happen from a curved surface. So it's always happening from the cutout at the plane of the equator, which is really where we all are. That arc of the protractor they add and say we live on the arc is a joke. So you can see the sun is over a particular spot over the plane of the equator. It's got its GP. The observer has his own zenith. He's got his GP. You take the elevation angle, subtract from the 90, and you have the zenith angle, the co-altitude. And this is how it works. And this is what the books tell us. It just can't happen from a curved surface because it has to happen from the plane of the equator, which they clearly say it's happening from. Next slide. Dip of the horizon means an increase in the altitude caused by elevation of the eye above the level of the sea. Now, you can't have it any clearer than the level of the sea. The following diagram illustrates this clearly. If the eye is on the level of the sea at A, it is in the plane of the horizon CD. This looks like a silhouette of a protractor. And that CD, CAD, is the plane of the equator where all the measurements come from. So now let's read it that way. If the eye is on the plane of the equator, or in this case of the C at A, it is in the plane of the horizon CD, and the angles EAC and EAD are right angles or 90 each, which could only happen if you had a plane, not on a curved surface. If the eye is elevated above A, say to B, it is plain that the angles EBC and EBD are greater than right angles. Or in other words, that the observer sees more than the semicircle of the sky. We can never see more than the semicircle of the sky, hence subtraction from 90. Hence, all measurements made by a sextant are too large. In other words, the elevation of the eye makes an angle too great, and therefore correction for dip is always subtracted. Now, what is dip? Height of eye gives you obtuse angle unless corrected for. So you bring your eyeball from the top of the deck of the ship you're at, say 15 feet, or a big ship at 50 feet, put it on the surface of the sea, plane of the equator. Now you got a true 90. Now you can do an elevation angle and get your acute angle, subtract from 90 to get your zenith distance. This is all from their books. Next slide. So here it is with the dingleberry, the way they trick the ballers and the anti-flat earthers. Well, look, it shows a circle. It shows we're on the globe, and you're using our celestial navigation books that say it works on the globe. No, they don't. They say it works in the center of the Earth. All your corrections are to show it can't work on a globe. It's to take it to the center where it can work, which you have a plane of the equator as shown previously. Now, parallel to actual horizon is height of eye with a plumb line or a bubble sextant. So you got your fictitious theoretical reference, horizontal to get your angle. But when you bring height of eye to C, the dotted line, now you're at sea level, and height of eye correction is between the top solid line and the dotted line. Everything below the dotted line is a lie. is a total fictitious made-up stuff. Next slide. As seen here, latitude for meridian, height of sun. Looks like a horizontal there, or horizon. It looks like the arc of the instrument could only give me a baseline of 180. That's a straight angle, and 2 quadrants of 90s. So the sun rises from the east. It gets over my head. It's at my zenith, then starts going away from me to the west. And there's a subtraction from 90 that way. This is how it works. And you see the horizon is not bending here. Oh, but in the previous picture, it was bending in the orthographic view because that's how they're fooling you. Next slide. Oh boy. I think Brian's logic destroyed them so many times over this chord line that would have to go through the curved surface if you were actually doing it on a sphere. The GP of the sun, the GP of the sailor on the sailboat with the sextant, you can't get a 90 off that curved surface. So you're actually going through the earth. And if you do that, that's a chord. And the arc would be longer than the chord and your measurements would be off. So this ain't happening. But look how they show it. Because this is from the center of the earth. Remember, all the corrections are to get it back to a flat earth, the plane of the equator. All right, next slide. I think it's the last slide. That's the equator. That's the plane of the equator. That's where the right angle measurements have to be corrected to. That's true altitude. That's your great circle, one single great circle. Everything else is an arc of a protractor. Nothing goes underneath this great circle. Nothing. I'm done.
That last slide, Ted. If I'm on a ball, I take it to the middle, so it kind of makes sense. Does north, south, east, and west make any sense anymore?
Very good point, Adam.
South's down on a ball. If I go to the centre of that ball, north's up, south's down.
Somebody
That's a myth.
read Master B.
East and west.
I got a special comment in Master B.
Okay.
North would only be up at the North Pole. Cut it, like if you were standing on the North Pole and cut it in half, then north would be up at that, right? Is that what you're saying?
Saying if you look at that picture, baller, for them to use it on a ball, has to go and create a flat plane at the centre of the Earth. So they have to, yeah. Now, if you do that and take that diagram to the centre of a ball, where's north? Where's south? They're no longer congruent with that circle. North is straight up. You've gone to the centre of the ball. So the north has to be a direction up and opposing south. It can't be across a flat plane, north and south still. There is no north and south at the centre. It is up and down, isn't it? Irrespective of your angle, you've got to have antipodal directions, but in 3 dimensions, not in this 2-dimensional flat surface that they're still trying to keep it upon.
Yeah, compass degrees can't work. Azimuth compass degrees can't work. Only horizontally. From that point of the center of the earth, it can't. Their north, south, east, west can't work. Good point. Good point, Adam.
Okay, just 1 second, guys. Arwin, I'm going to play the role of the flat Earth model, and you are going to respond, appropriately so, Baldwin, as the ball Earth model. You ready?
Can you do a good Darth Vader voice?
We'll find out. You ready?
All right. Yeah.
Okay, so this is Arwin's little stint. Your father never told you what happened. No, I've fucked it up already. Start again.
It's your teacher.
One more time. Your teacher never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No.
Terrible.
Let's try
Shut
that one
up,
more
Neil.
time without interruption from dicks like Neil. From the top. This is what happens when you don't rehearse, right? Your teacher never told you what happened to your father.
He told me enough. He told me you killed him.
No, I am your father.
No. No, that's not true. That's impossible.
Search your math. You know it's true.
No. No.
Very good, Arwin.
Thank you.
I
Ruined.
could recite that to my son, and you did a great job. Just kidding.
The point of
That was more like Metal Gear Solid.
It was terrible. The point of it is to say that the origins of Luke are Darth, and the origins of the globe are the flat Earth.
I thought it was
Yeah,
very
we
good.
are Darth
And
Vader.
it had a good point to it.
Exactly.
Search your
I
map.
tell you what.
Right?
Arwen, you were definitely whiny enough.
I can do a good Luke Skywalker.
Did
Yeah,
you
he
know
was
that?
a whiny guy, Luke.
Dude, he was like 16. What the hell do you want, man?
Mark Hamill
And he
was
lived
in...
like alone.
Let's get
With
back
his-
to the
with his
topic at
uncle.
hand. My God.
Exactly. Mark Hamill was also in a movie, I believe it was called Mutronics, but I recently saw a review by Red Eye Reviews on YouTube that called it like Guyver 1. So here in the UK, we had a movie called Mutronics, which had Mark Hamill in it as a detective with a tash. And it was about these weird, freaky alien things that would change from people to aliens, and a guy that inherited this biomechanical suit called the Guyver and fought him off. Now, that to me is a movie called Mutronics. And then a follow-up to the movie Mutronics was a movie called Guyver, Dark Hero. Now, in the States, it's obviously Mutronics is Guyver 1, and Guyver Dark Hero is Mutronics 2 or Guyver 2. I don't really get it. Your names are totally different. Anyway, it's got Mark Hamill in it. Turns into a cockroach at the end. It's mad. So there you go. You learn something new every day. It's a good job we're all here, eh?
Yeah, the
It's
flat
good to
Earth
be
is.
fair.
No, so we go from an equatorial plane to Mark Hamill turning into a cockroach. I have no idea how that just happened.
Yeah.
Because I'll link it quite happily back. Because Arwin had a little skit that had a flat Earth model as a character and a globe Earth model as a character. And the flat Earth model is explaining, as Darth Vader equivalents, that he is the father of the globe Earth model. So who are the characters that we're talking about? Well, we're talking about a character played by Mark Hamill. And Mark Hamill was in Mutronics. And Mutronics has got Kevin Bacon in it. So Kevin Bacon, there you go.
Mark Hamill also, one of his most
Oh my
famous
God.
roles is the Joker voice. So
He is. He's a very good character actor. He's done bazillion cartoons, actually. That's predominantly what he went into.
Are we saying Kevin
He
Bacon
also
proves
played-
Flat Earth?
Absolutely. The link is there. It only takes 5
Hold
steps to
on, I
get
got one
from
more.
Flat Earth to Kevin Bacon.
Luke played priest in Birthday Cake also.
Anyway, back to the reason that Arwen put up the analogy. Darth Vader is flat Earth. Luke Skywalker is the naive globe Earth. And the Emperor are the Freemasons. Someone, I don't know, whoever knows and is not telling them.
that's a good one. That's a good one because there is actually a follow-up scene.
And the
right?
Irish...
Because in the end, the globe model is saved from the Emperor by the flat Earth model.
And the Irish are the Ewoks.
The Ewoks.
The Ewoks are
No, they're
total
the
savages.
blacks of
right?
Europe.
If you look at the Ewoks, right when you get introduced to them, they're about to barbecue somebody. You know, they're real savages.
Thanks a lot.
Oh, I didn't mean any aspersions on the Irish. I mean,
right.
obviously.
They're not that savage because they can get a tune out of a stormtrooper's helmet.
Yeah, that's right. You can't give an Ewok a fiddle and a set of spoons and expect anything decent out of them. The Irish, on the other hand, that's a different matter.
Yeah, a set of spoons.
There we go. So that's Mark Hamill in Mutronics and the globe Earth model as Luke Skywalker.
I can't even believe that Jedi here got fooled by the dark side, because you guys are going into this instead of staying on the truth. The Jedis are losing their power here.
Listen, these aren't the elevation angles you're looking for.
The question is, how do you spin it that the dark side is flat Earth? I suppose that's true, because the light side is the side that your average normie believes he's part of, right? And that is actually, what's it called in the story? That's the rebellion. So
That's right.
So everybody
you
thinks
gotta
they're
go
a
Mace
freedom
Windu.
fighter. Everyone thinks they're fighting for the side of good. We're the dark side.
No.
Mace Windu recognizes that you have to have the dark side to get to the truth.
Yes.
But in this analogy, we are the dark side, aren't we?
Even
in Arwen's analogy, we are the dark side, though. That's my point.
Yeah, he's wrong. We're the light side. It's the other ones are fooled and we're waking them up.
I'd say something after Eli.
No, Ted, we're the dark side. Like,
No, you can be the dark side. I'm not on the dark side. Truth is not dark.
Hold on a second. Hold on. Let me get it straight. The two black panel members want us to be the dark side. I love it.
No, it's not.
You're having an allergic reaction
guys. We gotta
to
be careful.
Eli's trying to say
allergic
something.
reactions.
I'm not allergic. I'm not allergic to
Right,
light.
everyone's rumpusing Eli.
I know you
it's a
are,
fairly
because you
standard
know
event.
I'm
Let's just
fighting
clear the
really hard
airwaves.
to
Hold
say
on.
something, and you're still going to talk anyway.
Am I the only one talking here?
Everybody except Eli. Hello.
You're the only one I'm focusing on.
Everybody except Eli.
Tell
Go
the other
ahead,
three to
Eli.
be quiet then.
Oh, God. Go ahead, Eli.
Yeah, obviously. So, and reason being is because obviously you're not dark. Obviously, we are the light side.
Oh, is that what that was
No
for?
shit.
Oh,
But
God, what a waste.
But us being the dark side is people's perception of us, whether it be Star Wars, whether it be Dark Crystal, the new version on Netflix where the people think because the Skeksis told them, hey, your people are traitors to the good and everything that we do here in Thra. And the people believed it because the Skeksis were in power and they felt like, oh, everything that good happens to us is because of their grace and their mercy and this, that, and the third. That's what they believe. And in the same sense, a lot of people believe that flat earthers are just disruptors, people that are lying to get attention or whatever it is that people, the normies, actually believe we're here doing. Like, they think we're the dark side.
I gotcha. So in the mind's eye of the normie, in terms of the setting us against them paradigm, the perception is that we are the dark side. So to your average normie, we are perceived to be the dark side.
Yeah, but that's
what the anti-flat earthers treat us like.
I'll let Brian go, then I'll go.
Thank you, Tent. Yeah, but you're missing the analogy within the story, the Darth Vader story. Darth Vader was manipulated by the Emperor, who knew the truth but didn't tell the masses. In the end,
what was the truth?
True that
what was the truth he knew?
The truth that Darth Vader was Luke's father.
That's right.
Yeah,
but,
is that it?
Just
but
like
the Emperor
is that it?
manipulated the situation.
Is that it?
The Emperor manipulated the situation. The point I'm trying to make is that we are trying to tell the truth, which is seen as dark, but only because people have been manipulated by the Emperor, whoever the Emperor is, who knows the truth but is not telling them. That's the thing. So we're perceived as dark only because of that, because we're trying to tell the truth. But in the end, the truth is still the truth, and everyone ends up being happy with it.
Fair enough. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. Another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. And, of course, a massive thank you to all of you for smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on a premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!